crown of thorns with 3-inch thorns on his head, and they pounded it down so that the thorns dug into his scalp. Oh, you hear me this morning? It was not a pretty picture. Calvary was not anything beautiful to look at. When they got him to the place of the skull, history tells us they threw the crossbar down and they stretched his arms. They didn't just put his arm out there and tie it down, but they stretched his arm as far as they could stretch it, and they drove a nail in his wrist, not in the palm of his hand, because they wanted it to support the weight. And then they stretched the other arm so much that this one was pulling against that nail, and they drove the other nail in. Excruciating pain. And then they drug that bar up the beam that was in the ground, and they planted it in the notch at the top and strapped it in place. They pulled his feet up so that his knees were flexed, and they drove a nail through his feet to that cross. It's such an odd angle that cramps immediately began to go from his feet up into his ankles and down into his calves. Charlie horses began to grip his thighs. But in that weakened condition, he was down on the cross, and Charlie horses began to go down his arms from the nails that were pulling against the tendons, and began to go down across his chest, and it began to cause contractions in his chest where he could no longer breathe and catch his breath. And so he had to push himself up the cross onto his feet, putting all the weight on that nail that was in his feet, until the pain was so bad and the Charlie horses began to grip him so much that he had to ease himself back down on that cross. You've got to remember, his back is torn to shreds already. And now here he is, rubbing that raw back up and down that cross just to get a breath to stay alive. For 3 hours he did that. That was the sacrifice. Oh, the cost of a sacrifice. And then we want to hold on to the things of this world. We want to hold to our little vices when he paid that kind of price for your salvation. Is the cost of my sacrifice too high? No. No, friend. It's not too high. God, forgive me for being a wimp. Forgive me for complaining about what I have to give up. Because you know, what I give up is nothing compared to what you gave up for me. This altar's open. You want to come pray?